il podcast dello Strength and Conditioning italiano.
Ciao a tutti ragazzi e benvenuti in questo nuovo episodio di ITSCS Podcast. Quest'oggi con me ho il piacere e l'onore di avere Liam Mitchell, preparatore atletico della squadra nazionale Under 20 della Scozia. So thank you very much, Liam, for being with me today. It's
Pleasure.
an absolute pleasure, both for me and for all the listeners that are going to listen to this podcast. I'll go straight to the first question so everybody can know yourself a little bit more. So if you could give us a brief introduction about who you are in regards both about your academics experience and both the professional ones.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me on your podcast. Absolute pleasure. So I'm Liam Mitchell, strength conditioning coach based out in Edinburgh. My academics, as you can tell, I don't like talking about myself, so I'll get a little bit sheepish, but academic-wise, I studied at Edinburgh Napier University in my undergraduate, studying sport and exercise science and a Bachelor's of Honours there. After I graduated there, I then went on to the University of Edinburgh and studied a Master's in Strength Conditioning in 2014, 2015. That's academic-wise, that's it. After that, and I was quite lucky, I'd been doing an internship at the University of Edinburgh within a lot of their kind of multi-sport programs with rugby, I think women's hockey at the time, women's rugby, and various other sports. But in December 2015, I then was employed by Sports Scotland Institute of Sport. So that works within Commonwealth, Olympic sports and Paralympic. Mostly Scottish-based athletes, but there are some GB-based as well. And that was a multi-sport role that I was in as a kind of junior strength conditioning or physical preparation coach, it was called at the time. So I worked there for just under 6 years. Working in various sports, my main ones being curling, of all sports, swimming, women's football. I had quite a big, role within women's football. I was kind of East region kind of leading, whilst there was various actual national leads there, and that culminated in actually going with the team to World Cup qualifiers and then the actual World Cup itself in 2019 with the women's national squad. So I was very lucky there. And then in the last 2 years of my role, I was Scottish squash national lead for physical preparation, whilst working with other sports as well. And then most recently, the last kind of 3 years, I've been with Scottish Rugby. I started as the lead strength conditioning coach for Caledonia region, which is one of their 4 main academies. And then now recently, just since July 2023, I've been as the assistant strength conditioning coach for the under-20s, and I lead on the under-19s kind of transition group, which is aptly named by Scottish Rugby as the Players of National Interest group, or we like to call it the Ponies for short. So and that's where I am now.
Well, not so little in a sense, like you were been working with like a lot of different sports. For the Italian public, for all the guys that are listening here in Italy, probably they don't know. I would like to give a little bit more specific in regards of like the Commonwealth Games, just to the Italian public, let them know what they are. Just briefly, if you could give us, go on.
Absolutely. So I guess the Commonwealth Games is a strange one because that works on a 4-year cycle. So you have the Olympic Games in 2024 this year, and then in 2 years' time you have the Commonwealth Games, which is basically all the UK nations, so Scotland, England, Wales, and now this is really bad, but I'm sure Ireland compete as well, and Northern Ireland definitely do, but also the Commonwealth, like such as New Zealand, Australia, various other countries. There's quite a lot of countries within that, and it's basically regions or countries that were part of the British Empire, basically. So yeah, that's been around since I think the early 20th century, but it's been going a while. It's been named various things, but within Scottish sport, at least, it's a very big competition. And as you can tell, if it's 2 years from any Olympics cycle, it's also really big for preparing for the Olympics as well in various sports. So
yeah, basically, when I was in England, I remember all those guys that basically they use the Commonwealth Games as a, let's say, as a benchmark to see if the preparation how is their preparation in order to do the bigger competition, I would say. But yeah, thank you. It's just to let the Italian people a little bit, you know.
It makes sense because like in Scotland, England, like you mentioned Commonwealth Games, everyone knows, but then as soon as you go outside of that, like I bet Russia and America, they don't have a clue what it is. So,
exactly.
It makes complete sense. I guess we just wanted our own competition just so we could make sure we get some medals, I guess.
well, probably it's better. Probably it's better that way. At least you have more chances to, you know, win medals. We don't have them, so we are kind of like
that's it, exactly.
I guess so. Yeah. Also because with who we could deal with, France, they were never gonna do that. So we'll be a little bit different. But yeah, moving on. I'll go straight to the actual like bigger question in regards to the topic. So you've mentioned before that you are currently doing your job is as an SSC coach for the Scotland national team under 20s, and previously you did an under 18 19, sorry, which will be a bigger group, I guess. So my question is because I work with rugby too here in Italy, and we have like different academies all over the country. Well, at the moment they're just basically free. So before they were like a little bit more, especially in the south of Italy. But nowadays they're just free. So if you could give us a brief introduction about like how the academies are run up and how they are set up, and also like if there are some sort of like structure of inside of it.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, I guess you got to start from where players would come into our academy system is about under 16s level. That's where we'd actually start, I guess, the academy process. And so if you look at the academies within Scotland, there's 4 main academies, and they're all under the same roof of Scottish Rugby. So they're not private. They're all under Scottish Rugby, and there's 4 main regions, or 4 regions. Sorry, you have Edinburgh, you have the Borders in East Lothian, you have Glasgow in the west, and then you have Caledonia, which is north. So within those 4 regions, they work at under 16s, under 17s, and under 18s. And then when a player gets, I guess, ages out of that process, they then transition to the under 19s group. But there's 2 main avenues, technically free, is within Glasgow and Edinburgh, there are the pro academies, and there are around 15 players, but it looks like it could be more going forward. And players would be contracted by Glasgow or Edinburgh and paid to be academy players, and they're in a full-time environment. Underneath that, or I guess I don't want to say underneath that, but alongside that is the players of national interest group, which is you have players in Edinburgh and in Glasgow. They link very closely with the pro academies, but these players aren't full-time, and usually they'd be players that are studying or they're in college. Ones that they felt are very good players, but they're just maybe not quite at the standard yet to be under a pro academy contract. And then within that players of national interest group, there's also a wider training group as well. And these players are all predominantly, they're all under 19s or under 20 age group. After under 20s, then they would age out of our academy process. The pro academies in Edinburgh and Glasgow, I think they're changing slightly, and they aren't, I guess, only going to be under 20s. It'll be under 23s from what I've heard. Although Scottish Rugby is kind of going through a transition period, so how that kind of looks going forward might be slightly different to what I'm telling you now. But that's basically how the structure works in Scotland.
So basically, you're saying that the Edinburgh and Glasgow have some sort of like senior academy teams, so under 23, basically.
Yeah.
So
it has been under 20 up until now, but I think it's likely to maybe change to an under 23s instead. So they get more time with these players to hopefully transition them into the pro team.
Which is similar to the Premiership, isn't it?
I think so. I think the Premiership is under 23. I know Leinster. I know that's not Premiership, but the Leinster, I think they go to under 23, and they're maybe called transition academy players. After a certain age group, I think after under 20. So it looks as though we're kind of almost going towards that model, not copying it obviously, but very similar to Premiership and other clubs.
Yeah, so basically you have like 4 different regions, which is north, west, east, and the south. And so you basically have like some 4 different pools of players where you can pick it up, and I guess
absolutely, yeah. And I guess within that, like within those 4 regions, so Edinburgh and then the Borders and East Lothian, they merge to make Edinburgh under 16s, under 18 squad. And then Caledonia and Glasgow in the west, they will merge to make Glasgow Warriors under 16s, under 18 squads.
Okay, gotcha.
And usually so Glasgow Warriors will usually pick players for their senior academy from either Caledonia or Glasgow in the west, and Edinburgh from Edinburgh region or from the Borders in East Lothian.
Yeah, it's quite similar to here in Italy, because we have one in Milan, one in Parma, and one in Treviso. So basically the one in Milan, it's like it's midway from Parma and Treviso, which there is Zebre in Parma and Benetton Regio in Treviso. So basically those guys are being split it up, and after they finish the academy, some of them get the contract with the Treviso or Zebre. It depends of where there is more needed. But yeah, it's kind of similar. But
and is there any academies that like down south in Italy, like, because they're all quite northern, aren't they, that you've mentioned?
Yeah, because basically for what I remember, there were like 7 or 8 academies all over Italy, like in the most important cities, let's say in Rome, Naples. I think, because I'm not completely sure, but I'm sure about the fact that most of them, they got like eliminated, like deleted, because because the problem here in Italy that we don't have a domestic league that is quite, I don't know how to say, spectacular, also like engaging, because at the end of the day, which is sport business, so still business is a part of the game. They let's say they close it up to just 3 academies in order to make them a little bit more proficient and more specific. So yeah, that's I don't remember, it's like 4 or 5 years ago that they got like the reduced.
But
also because here in Italy it's quite different, because Treviso and the Veneto, the whole region, basically they do them for themselves, in the sense of like there is a little bit more heritage and culture about rugby in that region. It's like saying I don't know, in England probably Gloucestershire or like Welsh, or there are like those specific region where they're more playing rather than if you go to Liverpool, for example, they play football. So yeah, that's also another thing that it matters at the end of the day. So basically we were speaking about like from under 18 to under, let's say, under 20, roughly how many athletes are we talking about?
Oh, a lot. So pretty much I think the goal of Scottish Rugby at the minute is to obviously keep that net wider, that we don't want to narrow in too quickly, and make sure we've kind of kept that player pool as big as possible. So within each of the regions, so the 4 regions, there are 35 academy players, So that makes about, roughly 35, but that's from under 16s all the way to under 18s. And then what I would see within under 19s level is we'd have 50, give or take, within Glasgow and Edinburgh, plus another 15 that would be under my remit, or in Edinburgh or the West. So that's 60. Plus you'd have wider training squads, so you're looking at 80 to 90 players that are at that kind of under 20 level. But plus probably more than that. Like I think that's the least we'd expect within. We're actually bringing, but you'll see mostly boys will come down to either Glasgow or Edinburgh based, like regardless of where they're based, because they're the central hubs, and that's where facilities wise we have the best facilities. Our coaches are usually there or thereabouts, and we want quality rugby sessions to develop high quality rugby players that can meet the demands of international rugby. So we need to have them all in like training at one place. If we dilute that, then the quality of rugby drops. Which is always a concern. So that's why we only have the kind of 2 hubs in an under 20s level, so that we can keep the level of rugby pretty high.
Yeah, it makes sense. I guess there was like the same approach that they did here in Italy too. Also because it seems that nowadays our under 20s getting some victories. So
they're good. They're a good team, very good team.
So
it pains me to say that you beat us in the Six Nations actually. But I think it's credit to the work that's went on in Italy, to be honest, and hopefully you'll see those players come through into your senior men's squad. That's pretty much the aim of the under 20s program, is to represent your senior men's team by the end of that. So that success of an academy for me is yes, you want to holistically develop players, but are they also going on to sign pro contracts and ultimately play for Scotland or play for Italy?
Yeah, absolutely. In your years of experience, did you see that younger guys are more into it just in order to develop become professional athletes? How is it going in that regards? In a sense, are guys willing to get chances? I guess yes, because once you're in that environment, basically you just have to. I don't want to say follow the route, but you somehow have that direction in mind.
I think I obviously came in post-COVID, but I think we've definitely seen a change in behaviours from a lot of younger people when it comes to a lot of things like learning and developing. They really struggled from an attention standpoint and communication standpoint as well, and massively struggles post-COVID. But I only know it since COVID, but I guess just from my experience in working in various other sports, it's not been great. But yeah, I think that it's just the aftermath of that. I think we're definitely getting over that. I think it was a lot worse the kind of year I almost was when I first started my job in Caledonia Academy region. It was a few months kind of after the lockdown had finished, so it was in 2021, and it was terrible. Everything was from scratch basically. We had to build it up from there. So we're definitely in a much better place, and yeah, I think we just got a little bit of the kind of hangover from COVID a little bit for the last few years, but definitely like how young people learn these days has drastically changed. And I think COVID has a part to play. I think social media has a huge part to play. Like TikTok, like they say that, kids are only able to learn in like 10-second kind of spells, and then after that you lose their interest. I think I actually wouldn't disagree with that. I think the way that you communicate now as a coach, you have to be very clear and concise, and also displaying information or giving them information has to be very clear and concise. And not something I'm perfect at, and I'm always trying to develop that more and more. Because it is difficult, and it's only going to get worse. I think it's not. I say worse. I guess your coaching approach has to change, because if you try and keep doing what you've been doing, people like kids aren't what they were 10 years ago, and the way they learn isn't where they were 10 years ago. So you need to adapt to that as a coach, in my opinion.
No, it's true though. But I'll ask that question also because here in Italy it's quite a big issue because after COVID, like in close to the COVID itself, we got like a drop of people going to do sports, like just
we were the same.
like in all sports, regardless of like rugby or in all sports, like track, basketball, football, everything. And you put up a good topic in a sense for like nowadays we as a culture we must change the way we communicate because those guys are basically structured mentally wise in order to see the information in like maximum 20 seconds. And even if you go beyond, it's like a waste of time. So I might say it's not your fault. It's just that probably we grew up in a different kind of like setup
100%.
and therefore we are somehow close to the like more. I'm from the 1992, so I'm 31 years old, so
I'm 1992 as well.
you know,
Good
my
year.
brother is like 36 now, and kind of crazy in my opinion because you know, but it's a different way of communicate. It's like
100%.
way more personal, in person. Sorry, not personal, but in person and more. It's different. It's just different, and I guess that also the selection of the cues and the selection of like the input to give to the athletes, like the younger one, is crucial nowadays because as you said, we got less and less time to make them learn stuff, and also because honestly speaking, athletes usually don't, you know, they are not quite that interested to fully understand why they're doing that. So they're just doing it because that's part
They've
of
been told to.
job.
Yeah.
So it's challenging. It's absolutely one thing that it could be another topic for another podcast because the communication part is still
it's huge. It's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. But moving on, I got like my main questions, which is in regards of like a topic that I'm not usually touching, which is hypertrophy. In order to develop athletes of international level, therefore they're going through all the academy system, and then afterwards they get in like pro contract with like Glasgow or Edinburgh. How much is important that physical part, not in the sense of like that other physical qualities are not useful. Well, actually, probably the contrary, but it's just let's say not that speed, power, or agility or quickness or whatever are not useful, but in that time frame from 16 years old to 20 years old is the perfect spot to get on lean mass. So how do you implement it, and also how do you combine the need of develop bigger athletes but with also like other qualities as speed, skills, and whatever?
Yeah, no, great question. I think, and it's one of those things as you'll know, being in rugby yourself, it's huge. And like going back onto hypertrophy, I guess why it's important is we need players that are big, strong, and relatively lean as well, just from a momentum standpoint. And a key performance indicator of success within rugby is having really good momentum. And for me, that is being as big as possible, being as fast as possible, but that being that big is not holding any fat mass, or as little as possible, as the props will hate to hear. But unfortunately, that's the reality of rugby. That's why you see South Africa as such a successful team, is that they have very big, powerful human beings that they break the gain line every time because their momentum is so good, and so for that, and a key thing with us within Scottish Rugby is our players need to be more physically developed. No one will argue that. How we do that, I guess maybe depends on a coach. You could ask a million coaches and get a million different answers. But I think as long as you follow the right principles as an S&C coach, then you'll go along, you'll go pretty easily. I think there's three key kind of areas that you want to look at in developing hypertrophy, which is mechanical tension, muscle damage, and metabolic stress. So your program should incorporate all three of these. I think a lot of people, when they talk about we need to get bigger, they think, right, it's just training to failure. And I think that's just one aspect of building muscle or increasing lean mass. And for me, that's come down to, that's metabolic stress. Can you go to failure on certain lifts? I think you need to be careful how you implement that. So on your kind of part of your question there is, how would I implement training to failure and creating metabolic stress? I would do that with smaller lifts, not our compound lifts such as squat or deadlift. I wouldn't touch that, or front squat. But you can do it within certain other lifts, like smaller exercises such as shoulder press, bench press, dumbbell bench press itself, military press. So I think it's been smart in your exercise selection around where you fit that in, and then also where you fit that in the week. If you have a game on a Saturday and you're doing it in season, then you want to be front loading that week there if you're training to failure, and creating metabolic stress, because you know yourself, you get Domande after going to failure. And then the other aspect is muscle damage. How do we create muscle damage? I think, you can change the tempo of an exercise, so you slow it down. You can make it more of an eccentric focus. We know that eccentric over concentric will create more muscle damage, and recruit, fast unit muscle fibers. So we'd want to implement eccentric training, but again, where do you fit that in the week? You need to be very smart with that as an S&C coach. I wouldn't be doing that close to any game day. So that would, again, you're looking at the front end of the week. So it's a tough week for guys, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But I think the big thing, and a lot of people don't really, they kind of forget about it, it's kind of underrated, is actually getting players stronger. And a byproduct of being strong is increasing in lean muscle mass. I don't think it's the only thing you concentrate on, but you need to be getting players stronger. Not just from a size standpoint, but actually from being able to perform tasks that you need maximal strength or rate of force development within rugby, such as tackling or sprinting. You need strength as well. So you need to be pushing strength year round. And I think these three areas, if you can hit those, mechanical tension, muscle damage, and metabolic stress within your week and within your mesocycles and macrocycles, then you'll be doing pretty well. They're physically the key aims. The biggest thing that I've realized coming into rugby is that nutrition is huge, because actually if you look at the S&C programs, they're pretty much on point. Like if you go from strength program to strength program, most of S&C coaches are hitting those areas. I think the biggest thing is actually these young boys still eating like children, and that's what's actually holding them back. So we're very lucky within Scottish Rugby that we have a qualified nutritionist who's full-time with us, who works within the age grade program, Tony Lamb, really good practitioner. She does like education series with players, but also will do one-to-one with key players as well that we need that with. And yeah, it's also educating, like, not just the children or the kids that are coming through, but actually their parents as well, because their parents are the ones that buy the shopping, the groceries. So it's called almost a double whammy, but getting them to understand the basic nutrition guidelines for increasing size, like the right kind of size and increasing lean mass is huge. And it's probably one of the areas, I think I would say within all rugby, that players, if they can own in on one thing, would be their nutrition.
Well, also because it's like the most at the beginning, it appears also like the nutrition part appears also like the most time consuming. Is not, maybe it's not even funny, in a sense of like prepping your meals and understand why you shouldn't eat candies all days, and probably a little bit more intelligent solution of like how you get like, your calories. But it's common in a sense of like especially at that age, they quite feel that they are already good players, therefore they are actually they just think that that's enough, and yeah, everything will just come through. But I guess that once they experience a little bit higher level, especially with like international games, they start to understand the reason why.
Well, yeah, and I think this is where academy really, like from an education standpoint, academy really needs to develop players holistically, and that getting them to understand that although you're in maybe 3-4 hours of the day within the academy, it's what you do the other 20 hours of the day that's going to really make a huge difference. And I think we probably say it that much that these like young kids and the boy, they just kind of get bored of hearing it, but it's massive. Like you need to eat well. I think a lot of kids, or young kids or young people, they see on social media all this supplements and them needing to take supplements, and yet they are useful at certain points. But if your nutrition isn't right, then you know you shouldn't be looking at these supplements at the minute. And it's stuff like that. That isn't just in nutrition. You see it with S&C. They want to be doing what the pros are doing as well. Whereas you're 16, 17 years old. You can't even back squat properly. So why am I going to worry about what the professional team are doing here? Like your priorities are all wrong. And it's education within that, you know, and get like I guess that's one of the actual downfalls of social media is that yes, they see the pros training hard, but they also go, oh, I want to do that because Duhan van der Merwe is doing that, so I want to do that. And it's like, well, he's had years and years of training under his belt. That's why he's doing that. You need to earn the right. So anyway, I feel like I went completely off tangent there.
No, not at all. In a sense, but like because at the end of the day, honestly speaking, in my opinion, what is actually more interesting is to hear from professional like yourself, not the sets and reps or like the way that we're supposed to do that, but like actually the experience you gain over the years and which is your experience that determines your reflection and to say now that nutrition is crucial. So yeah, no, it's not absolutely not is not a change of direction. I'll go back a little bit from the beginning in the sense that, like you said, that the athletes come in for 4 hours a day. So how is it like a training week for them? Like how is it set up?
Yeah, so our games are, I think, pretty much the same as everywhere. Games will be on a Saturday, so I guess I'll run you through the season, what that looks like, because that's, well, 9 months of the year. So
sorry, Liam, if I interrupt you.
No,
Do they play with their like their own clubs, or they're just playing with like the selections?
Yeah, so it depends. So at under 18s level, they'll play with their school or their club, but they'll be under 18 level for most of them. There might be some players within that Scottish Rugby deemed to be it's too low level for them that they would play up. You know, they might be 17 years old, but they'll play at senior men. But they're outliers. They're not you. They're kind of the exception, not the rule. At under 19 level, so when they're 18 years old, they will go to various clubs. We did have a semi-professional league called the Super Series, but that's actually there's a season currently on, but that'll be disbanded after this season. And we're going to an extended, like a Premiership season. So this is what I mean. Where Scotland Rugby is in a bit of a transition period at the minute, but generally speaking, players will play for a club team, and they'll all be various. It's up to them who they play for. We don't dictate to players, unless they're pro academy, they'd be assigned to a club, or a semi-professional team, and yeah, so that's pretty much how the games work. We will just monitor players in terms of how much game time they play, and what level they're playing at. But we wouldn't dictate to them in terms of who they go and play for. And then so going back to your other question of their weekly schedule, so they would come in with us on a Monday morning. We would train early morning usually because we've got to think about time frames. A lot of these guys are at college or at university or working, so we'll go early morning gym. And then we'd go straight onto pitch after that. We'd have probably a lighter session on a Monday, very skills based, and we'll have probably our specialist skills coaches there. So we have we're very lucky in Scotland that we have some special skills coaches around. So Scott Lawson, who's a thrower for hookers. We have Craig Dodds, who's a kicker. And we have Gary Strain, who's our scrum specialist. So they would be in it on a Monday usually and be doing individual kind of skills with players or groups of players. They would then have the afternoon and evening off on a Monday. On a Tuesday, they would be in again morning gym and then onto pitch where we'd have a kind of higher day. That's a higher intensity day. They would then go to their various uni or college or work, and then they'd have club training at night. So they'd go to their various clubs and train at night. They'd have a Wednesday where we wouldn't expect to see them on a Wednesday, but they would just crack on with any individual extras they need to do from a physical standpoint. So if we have them in a body composition group, we would have them doing like some off-feet conditioning or probably some upper body extras. A lot of them need to increase their size. So all of them will be doing upper body extras on a Wednesday, let's be honest. And there just might be some boys that need some off-feet conditioning as well. And then after that, it's basically a kind of recovery day as well. Thursday, we will be in again, gym early and then pitch after that. And then they will go to their club training at night. Again, similar to a Tuesday, it's just it won't be as high intensity day on pitch. Okay. And then on a Friday, it'll just be gym. It'll just be, if they're playing on that Saturday, it'll be a primer session with a little bit upper body. And then that'll be them for the day. If they're not playing on that Saturday, they would have, again, some individual extras or priority extras, we call them. So again, the guys that need a bit of extra conditioning will do that on a Friday. And that's basically how their week works, and we do that most of the year through. A lot of them transitioning into kind of an off season now, so this is boys transitioning out of under 18 coming into under 18. So this is a huge window for them because they have until August to then be ready for senior men's rugby. So now it's 4 days a week of supervised gym, and we're going to hit them pretty hard for the next 4 months. Physically to prepare them for the kind of senior men's season.
So basically, they are invited to do like the training session with their clubs a couple of times a week.
So they just go to their various club sessions on a Tuesday, Thursday. If it's a semi-pro team, they would train sometimes on a Monday night, but it'd be low-key sessions. It wouldn't be a heavy running session. But again, that'll be disbanded kind of after this summer. So that going forward, that really won't happen on a Monday night, I wouldn't have thought.
Okay, awesome, thank you. I got my last question, which is how do you see the Scottish rugby developing? So like what are the future objectives of Scottish rugby? You just previously said that there, if I understood well, there will be like a domestic championship, like similar to the Premiership.
So the Scottish Rugby, they've disbanded the semi-professional league, and it'll go to what we call that already existed was the Premiership season. There'll be more teams in that this season, and I guess that will run as it usually is. I don't think there'll be any other changes to that. And then I guess the biggest changes, there will be A games, so it'll be Edinburgh A, Glasgow A teams.
Okay.
The professional academy players, the senior academy players would be expected to play for those teams, plus probably some under 19s or basically they'd bring in more players for those teams to get them in, or if there's professional players that aren't getting enough game time. I think there'll be a lot more they'll have a lot more games within the season. I think going forward, that'll probably the under 20s players would be pushed towards those games, from my understanding. But again, like I said, Scottish Rugby is in an exciting but a big transition period. So how that looks, I can't give you a definitive answer.
No worries.
Yeah, but no, it is exciting. I think Scottish Rugby, they get a lot of stick, but they are really putting the work in. I think if you were someone on the ground and seeing what the work the staff were putting in, you you get your eyes opened of just how much people are really pushing to prepare our players, not just physically, but from like we are building rugby players, better rugby players, and the work going in there is massive, you know, and it's exciting to be a part of.
Yeah, I mean it's a great journey in a sense of like you actually probably in my opinion have even a little bit more effect on those guys in the sense of like for all the people that you are going through your hands, there are also there must be someone that is going to be a pro and probably
it's why I love this kind of level of the rugby, is that you, like you just said, you actually have an effect on people's career. Exactly. Like if you're working in the pro game, the amount of coaching you actually do within the gym and the effect you can is very limited. You know, it's such a congested kind of fixture period, where working in the academy set up from under 18s, or where I'm at with under 19s, under 20s, it's exciting, but I actually feel like I have an impact within my role. Which brings its pressures with it, but also very rewarding as well. And like you said, I'm working with boys that, you know, you'd like to hope are a lot of them are going to go pro. And I guess I can sit at home one day watching them on TV and go, I played a small part in that.
Absolutely.
And that's what motivates me to be a coach. That's why I always kind of started. And maybe it's a little bit of ego, but I remember thinking one day, I'll never be a pro rugby player, but at least if I can have an impact on someone becoming a pro athlete, a pro rugby player, like that for me would be a massive job satisfaction, and it's what motivates me, you know.
It's like
hopefully no psychologist is reading into that too much, but that's just kind of that's what motivates me, you know. It's I love it.
No, in a sense, like this is a noble purpose in the sense of let's say like being real. This is a good and unnecessary feelings to have in order to do this job. Also because yes, it looks a little bit more glamour, the top level and working with the adults, but sometimes you feel like you're just topping up.
Yeah, that's it, exactly. I think unless you're someone that's responsible for the rehab of professional players, you're not like, I think within the rehab setting is very exciting, but if you're within the pro setting, and for some people that might be exciting, and to be traveling with them, and like it would be tough, but a rewarding job in another sense. But for the time being, I'm definitely I'm really invested in kind of the holistic development of players, you know, and building relationships with kind of young players to hopefully make it in their sport.
I completely understand you, because none of the two ways are good or bad, in a sense of like there are people that will love more like working with like adult athlete, and people are working more likely more with younger athletes. So it's also a good thing about the industry itself, in the sense of like people get their own specializations or English.
Absolutely.
That's it. No, I agree with you.
Well, you had Scozzese on, I think in February. It was a good podcast, but like, you know, his specialization is how do I fit in S&C work within such a huge kind of like 60 games a year, which is absolutely crazy. So, you know, he's found his kind of niche, which I guess for him it must be really exciting in itself.
No, I agree 100%. As I said, Liam, we cover all the questions that I put them down. May I say thank you very much?
No, thank you. I've enjoyed it. Hopefully it's been useful to someone anyway. But...
I mean, they will be absolutely useful also because it will be on YouTube, and on YouTube for all the Italian guys that are having some issue with English, there will be the translation, so it will not be a big deal. So no. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Was also really interesting because we dive in some of the stuff that most of the time they're not spoken, in itself, like also hypertrophy and all the setup, which is in my mind important, because This is the way that the old movement of rugby develops in Scotland and in Italy too. So yeah, I really appreciate. So thank you again. Thank you a lot.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I've enjoyed it.
I'll do the last sentence in Italian, so in order to close it up.
Cool.
Un saluto a tutti i coach della Società Italiana di Strength and Conditioning. Be part of it. So, Liam, thank you very much and see you next time. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Ciao, ciao, ciao.
Bye, bye.